All right. So, welcome to Important Conversations. As you know, or may not know, I am a personal wellness junkie and I'm a certified health coach who is currently studying mastery. So, my goal here today is to just kind of help people understand unresolved childhood trauma and the effects it has in adulthood. And I hope to educate and empower others to heal their own personal trauma and shed a light on this taboo topic. So I want to welcome a dear friend of mine, Laurie, to this conversation today. Welcome, Laurie. Thank you so much for
Hi.
being here. It's a
Hi. Thank
pleasure.
you.
Um, so why don't we start off with a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I am Laurie Williams. I have actually recently quit my 9 to 5 job, I guess you could call it that, and started my own business, working my own business full time. And I'm an energy healer and a psychic medium. So that's what I spend my days doing. Um, my entire story is about healing. My entire journey is about healing. So I mean, this a perfect platform to be able to talk about that and talk about um, things that have happened and how my life has unfolded because of trauma. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's I help people every day to overcome the things that I've had to overcome, um, and using my own healing abilities that have been given to me, I am able to help people get their life back, which I mean, as somebody who has gone through those kinds of things of not feeling like you have a place or not knowing what your place is, feeling like you're a lost cause, I definitely, it just, it's very heartwarming for me to be able to come from that place of knowing where I've been in order to help people so that they don't have to be like me and they don't have to go through the things that I had to go through.
Mm. And that's so beautiful. I think there's something special about being able to take the hardships and the rough tough stuff that you've been through and really just kind of transform that into a medium to help other people, right?
Hmm.
So like you said, they don't have to go through what you've gone through, and that's exactly where I'm at as well.
Hmm.
Being able to just kind of transcend from any pain and trauma and turn it around to use it as a tool to help other people, whether it's get through what they're going through or maybe even avoid them going so far down that rabbit hole.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Laurie, what are you currently working on right now?
Actually, right now, I'm currently working on. I have a healing modality that I call it being downloaded. So, like throughout my healing process, my healing journey, I guess you could call it, it spanned over the last 7 years. There's been a lot that's gone on in the last 7 years. If I when I stop and think about it, from where I was to where I am now. But through my healing journey, different gifts have come through. So, like spiritual gifts was what I call them. Like being a psychic medium, being an energy healer. I can read people's energy, all those kinds of things. So all of those things have come through at different points of my journey, and I honestly believe that I had to heal up until that point for that gift to come through. It was like the healing baggage or the trauma baggage that I was holding on to wouldn't allow the purity and that through, like I call it, like the pure, like to be a pure uh, catalyst between the energy world and the physical world. Having like being so into my traumas, it was they were kind of holding me back. So as I was able to go through the healing process and heal those traumas and be able to release the energy around them, I literally would wake up and be something there'd be something different about me. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's exactly how it worked out. The healing modality that I'm actually working on, I'm going to be teaching it to other people because it's such a strong healing modality. It's called cosmic light energy healing. It's my own healing modality. I've had 3 healing modalities that have come through for me. Crystal healing was one. It was the very first one. Then I had cosmic light energy healing, and most recently, back in March, I had another one, which was soul frequency healing. All 3 are very, very different. And but the cosmic light energy healing, I'm actually uh, starting this Saturday. I'm starting courses to teach people how to use it for themselves because it is such a powerful healing modality. Um, And it's absolutely crazy how, I mean, how it came to me is I was sick for 4 days. And
Mm.
when I came out of it, it's like I had this urge to touch people. And I know that sounds horrible, but the very first time I remember even feeling that is my husband and I. So it was like pretty much all week I was sick. And then my husband, the fourth day I woke up and I was perfectly fine. And my husband kept saying to me, he's like, let's go to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital. Like I couldn't eat. I couldn't keep water down. I could barely hold my head up. I needed help to walk, like just to go to the washroom. And it
Mm.
came out of nowhere. So he was obviously scared. And the thought of having to like walk downstairs to go to get in the vehicle, or to walk, or to even have to sit in the waiting room at the hospital, just was way more energy than I knew I had. And I knew it wasn't medical. I didn't know, I still don't know how I know that or how I knew back then it wasn't medical, but I just had this very strong feeling. I'm like, it's a good thing. I kept telling it, so it's okay, it's okay. And he was freaking out, but I kept telling him it was okay. I still don't know where that came from, but well, I do. It's definitely my higher self, my higher aspect telling me that things were going to be okay. So the very first day that I came out of that and I was feeling better, we had come back from the grocery store and there was a man and a woman walking up the street. We were driving, we are stopped at a stop sign, and I just happened to look over and this man was holding his right hip and limping really bad. And I said to my husband, I'm like, I just feel like I need to touch him. I've like this complete stranger. I need to like, and my husband kind of looks at me and he's like, I'm not pulling over. You're going to get charged. And I'm like, okay, just keep driving. I'm just telling you, I feel like I need to go and touch him. And
Wow.
so it was a few days later. I was actually doing some crystal healing on my dad. And I said to my dad, I'm like, I just have this feeling like I need to touch you. And my dad has suffered with back pain the majority of his life. He's in his 60s, but like most of his life, he's a farmer, very like, fix everything, very hard on his body type of person. Um, and I remember just putting my hands on him like this, and his spine was running right down on either side of my hands. And then all of a sudden I just jumped because I actually felt his spine move.
Wow.
And he's like, I don't know what you just did. He goes, but that felt like that's perfect. That felt really good. He goes, do it again. So I ended up just placing my hands just on, I don't even know how, just like strategic places that I just kind of let my intuition guide me.
Mm.
And as I was touching these different places, his bones started moving. And then it wasn't long after that, I just happened to look at him and I could see like red lines going across his shoulders, down his back. And as I touched those red spots, I knew that that's where he needed healing.
Wow.
So through that, that actually scared the crap out of me, and I didn't do anything with it for almost a year because it scared me so much. I don't know, this is way too much power for one person to have. Like I can't do this. So I just kind of ignored it. And then last summer, I had a few people that were reaching out to me, and I was like, I have to use this healing, and I had to kind of like get myself out of the way of it. Like I had to let myself be like, it's not about you. And I have to tell myself that a lot, especially when fear kicks in. It's
Mm.
not about me, and it's the fear aspect of me that makes me think it's about me. But in order to get past that fear, I have to tell myself this person needs what I have. It's not about me at this point. I need to help them. I need to put my fears aside and be able to help them. Um, by December of last year, we had went into a lockdown again with COVID. So I decided, something in me told me like, hey, you can do this. Like you can send this energy, um, like through like the energy waves, like through the atmosphere, through the universe. So between Christmas and New Year's, I decided that I was going to do everything, like just follow my intuitive guidance that I had, and learn to be able to send cosmic light energy healing through distance healing. And now I predominantly do it through distance healing. I've healed people in South Africa, the States predominantly, a little bit in Canada, some down like South America, India,
Wow.
quite a few over in Japan, China, Ireland, Scotland, England, like all over the world.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been an amazing ride. It's to say the least.
And I absolutely love your story for so many different reasons. The things that you're talking about are a lot of the things that we learn about in mastery. It's like when you come against that fear, you have to push through it, and you have to keep in mind that the gifts that you have and your service that you want to help other people is greater than your fear. And it has
Mhm.
to be because you are here for a reason. You're here to help those people. And if you let fear get in your way, then that's just going to stop you from being able to help all those people that you're meant to serve. So I think that's super beautiful. And one of the things that I've learned over my process and my journey is that the energy work is a huge part of trauma. My own personal trauma has been manifesting in many ways over the course of my entire life. And, just very recently, I had to go for x-rays and blood work and all these other testings, and they all came back absolutely negative. There's nothing, quote unquote, wrong with me, but there is all these things happening inside of my body. And so now it's kind of sifting through and finding out how to move that energy, right? Because it's like blocked energy. It's unreleased energy, unreleased tension, and you have to let it pass through your body in order
It's
to
all
heal.
emotional.
Exactly.
It's all emotional. Every energy that is trapped is an emotion. There is always
Exactly.
an emotional attachment to that energy 100% of the time.
And
It's the emotion that's caused the energy block.
yeah. And so it's interesting when we talk about trauma, because a lot of times people talk about trauma as in the event that happened. That's what people think is the trauma. And it's not the event that's traumatic. Absolutely. And I would never take that away from somebody. But the trauma that happens is what happens inside of your body because of what you experienced.
It's what you're
Right.
holding on to. The trauma is the emotion that you're holding on to. And that trauma continues to eat at you every single day as if we're reliving that trauma. There's actually been studies, and I read this recently, and so I mean it's perfect timing for this interview as well, is that we believe that like in healing our traumas that we're reliving the trauma, but the truth of it is every single time that we think about an unhealed trauma, we are actually releasing the same endorphins, the same hormones, and going into that same fear mindset as if we're reliving it.
Yeah.
So you're not reliving it in healing, you're reliving it by not healing it. And
Exactly.
that's where a lot of people, I think there's a lot of confusion, and people are just afraid to heal these things because they look at it that like they have to relive it. And I tell my clients every single day, I was like, you will never have to relive this with me ever. It's about taking your power back, not continuing to lose your power.
Exactly.
You've been on this cycle of losing your power every single day that you've been holding on to this. Starting today, from the day that you work with me, you're now getting your power back. Is the healing process is about empowering, not continuing to take your power away.
I love that. I literally just did a live about that yesterday on Facebook, and it was around, the wounds and kind of what trauma is. And it was about like, trauma is an open wound. What happens when
Mhm.
you touch an open wound? It hurts. So it's these triggers. So when you're triggered in your current life, in the present moment, 9 times out of 10, or like my son would say, 18 times out of 10, you're triggered. He's 6. you're,
You
you're
know
being
what? I
triggered.
actually like his 18 times out of 10 because that's guaranteed to happen.
He's brilliant. He's
He
brilliant.
is. He's a
Um,
genius.
so when you're triggered in the moment, it's usually or always actually a trigger from the past. So you're not living in the present moment, which is something that I can attest to personally. When you deal with trauma and you hold on to unresolved trauma, you very rarely actually get to live in the present. You're living in the
Yeah,
past. You're
100%.
If somebody hurts your feelings, it's the trigger that you're bringing up from before. So if we can just let go of those and heal, think of how much more present people would be, how much happier people would be. And then not only that, all the like autoimmune diseases that happen from people holding on to those trauma and the emotion, all the diseases that happen,
Mhm.
dis-ease, right? That is the definition
Exactly.
of disease. It's dis-ease. And anyway, so that's a whole nother conversation right
I was
there.
going to say, you and I could go on for days about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my next question for you, do you think trauma is avoidable? Do you think it's something you can avoid?
I would actually pose the question of why would you want to? Mostly because I feel like in the healing process, you learn more about yourself, and to, I mean, I'm at a point now where I've done a lot of healing. I've done 7 years of healing, and I mean a lot of extensive healing on myself. Healed myself from diseases, healed myself from things doctors said I would never would be healed from, healed myself from PTSD and suicidal depression that I suffered with for most of my life, all from healing my traumas. I can look back at every single one of my traumas and be grateful that they happened. I don't have a resentment around them like I used to. And I've learned so much about who I am. I've actually, in a way, I guess my traumas have defined me, but not in a way that the person who initiated the trauma may have expected. You know, most people, when they hurt somebody else, they want to bring that person down because they themselves are hurting as well. My traumas actually, through healing them, I have learned so much about myself. My traumas have actually helped me to rise up. They've actually helped me to step into who I am. I don't believe, like, as souls on this earth, I don't believe that we're here for an easy life. Because I mean, if you stop and think about your life, how many lessons did you actually learn by things going well? You don't learn through the things going well. You need to have those things because you're on a soul level, even on a human level, a physical human level, you need to learn lessons as you're going through this lifetime. That's what this lifetime is about. So to avoid trauma would be avoiding getting to know who you are, getting to know knowing what the human experience is. And like I said, I think you probably could. I mean, if you lived in a bubble, I think to some extent you could avoid trauma, but even that I think would be traumatic because you're not experiencing life. You know, like I think, and I see this even like with my own kids, like in the early years where I could, you know, try to protect them and try to keep them safe and all those kinds of things. I realize now that as much as I tried to do that for them, and I was successful with it, it wasn't helpful. And I mean, by the time they got to about like 6 or 7 years old, I realized like I have to take a step back and actually let these kids experience things because they're not experiencing anything in the safety, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I mean, I think you probably could, but like, again, I think so you could try, I guess, but even in trying to avoid trauma, I think that would in itself be traumatic because you're not actually living and experiencing life.
I love that. I love what you said about the human experience because you took the words right out of my mouth. And your resentment piece too. Again, I had just touched on that. And it's like if we could approach the trauma from a place of curiosity as opposed to resentment, then that because that come from is empowering, right? That's asking those questions, you know, what can I learn from this? How can I change this? What's the teaching behind here? How can I help somebody else? Right. That's like almost transcending. Whereas the resentment piece is that disempowering piece. And that's where you get stuck. If you're in resentment, you're stuck because you're doing that blame, you're blaming somebody else and you're not taking ownership for your piece. And I'm not saying that people who experience trauma are responsible because we're not, you know, 9 times out of 10, we're children a lot of the time, especially the piece that I'm talking about, the early childhood trauma. It's not your fault. Like nobody's to blame. And the other part too is like what you said about the human experience. I believe that our trauma is a way for us to reconnect to ourself. It's if you can heal through your trauma, you'll be so connected to who you truly are. It's like you'll find yourself for the first time. And you know, when you look around at people who are legit at peace with themselves and with the world, I believe it's because they've healed who they are as a person and they've come back to their true self, right? That authentic true self that as we were born, right? Because that's how we're born. We're born as who we're supposed to be.
Exactly. But on that note too, one thing that I experienced this through my own healing trauma, and just for anybody watching this down the road, I think it's something that's definitely worth noting as well. Is one thing that stopped me from even trying to heal myself was A, not knowing where to start, and B, this was actually the bigger one that I didn't realize at the time that was holding me back, was I didn't know who I was without it. Right. So when I look back at it, like I was molested as a small child. It happened between the ages of like 3 and 7. So in that time frame where I mean, it wasn't just being molested. The molestation happened a little bit later, like towards the age of 7. But in the earlier years, it was just like a lot of being very manipulative, being very like beating the crap out of me, literally, like all that kind of stuff. So like a lot of like torture type stuff. So I would look back and I'm like, okay, well, who am I supposed to be without this trauma? And I would look back and I'm like, okay, but it started when I was 3. Who the hell remembers who they were before the age of 3?
Exactly.
And it wasn't until there was one day that I was driving, ironically, I was driving to the doctor, and there was a tanker truck coming the opposite direction. And I was like, I could just swerve in front of him and end all of this. And I wish I could say that that was the first time I had that thought, but that thought happened every single time I drove. Every time I picked up a knife, I'm like, if I could just slit my wrist, I'd be done. Like
Mhm.
these were constant thoughts in my head. But this one day with that tanker truck on the road, I pulled over and I was like yelling and screaming at God or whatever was out there at that point. I didn't even have like a belief system. And I was just like this is not living. And I gave myself 30 days to either heal myself or I was going to end my life because I wasn't living.
Mm.
And that's how it all started for me, because it got me to a point where I had to look past the fear of staying the same. Was literally worse than the fear of change for me. I
Mm.
knew something had to change. There was no other option. It was going to take my life if I didn't. I ended up going through liver failure, like what you were talking about as well. With like, I was 34 years old. I go to the doctors, and my doctor tells me that my liver enzyme numbers are like through the roof, and like they were in the thousands, and they're supposed to be in the hundreds. And I was like, okay, that's not good. We got to a point where um, I had was going to her I had to have blood work, and then I had to go to the doctor every single week, just to check on my liver enzymes. And I'd ask her, I'm like, what's caused this? Like, how do we fix it? And she's like, well, the problem is I don't know what's causing it, and therefore I don't know how to fix it.
Mm.
So I had no choice. Literally, again, it was going to take my life. That was so the thing that happened on the side of the road with the tanker truck was in January of 2014, and the thing with the doctor happened in April of 2014. So it was all like pretty close together.
Mm.
Um, but it was through that process that I was able to see that it's the things I'm hanging on to, the things that I'm not able to release from, that are attaching to my liver, that are attaching to my body in different physical ways. I had gluten intolerance. I was lactose intolerant since the age of 13. All these different food intolerances, severe IBS to the point where, I couldn't even drink water some days without being sick. All
Mm.
of this stuff, and now I have all of those things are healed. And it
Mm.
wasn't through anything medical. It was literally just by shifting that energy that was stagnant, that was holding on to me. And I think the biggest thing is being able, like going back to what you were saying about people, how they kind of hold on to it. Us as human beings, we overthink things. So that's very common for us.
Mhm.
But as soon as you go from the stage of being, why did this happen to me, into why did this happen for me?
Right.
That's when you're ready to heal. That's when you're ready to heal. You're ready to drop any excuse that might come up. That ego mind that likes to tell you that you need to stay the same and fears change. And that's where the fear comes from and all that kind of stuff, to try to keep you the same. Once you can override that and get into a space of why did this happen to me,
Mm.
then that's when the journey really starts, because you literally go on a journey of why did all of these traumas happen to me. And it's almost like you're following this path. It's like, okay, I'm here at, being molested. Why did this happen? Oh, and this here, especially like if you look at my life, my family, like the family that I was raised in, I'm the second oldest of 4 children, and I'm the oldest girl. My parents were good parents. They were not alcoholics. They did not use drugs. They were not abusive in any way, shape, or form. But I went on to marry my first husband, who tried to take my life and was very verbally, emotionally, and physically abusive.
Mm.
That wasn't because of the family that I was raised in. It was because of the trauma that had happened to me.
Right.
And I mean, to go even further with that, and this might be something that you want to touch on later, but like my daughter at 17 years old is now dealing with a lot of the things, a lot of like the depression and suicidal thoughts and all those kinds of things. And she's been going to the doctors, and the doctors are like, there's no trauma attached to any of this. They're looking for a trauma. And they're now realizing that through the birthing process, the energy that I had, because when I was
Mm.
pregnant with her, I was at the lowest of my low. I was going to take my life. Um, this was in 2003. This, like I said, for many, many years, I had planned on taking my life. So this one plan that I had was, it was going to be on the Monday of the civic holiday long weekend in 2003. And the Sunday, the day before that, I found out I was pregnant with her. That's actually the first time that she saved my life. The second time was my first husband was choking me. She woke up from her nap and came down the hallway, and he stopped choking me. That by the time that kid was 3 years old, too, she already saved my life twice. No kid should have to do that.
No.
But the energy that she had from me, from being like the birth process, is now playing out in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And people think that energy is not real. And I was like, energy is everything. Like energy is the beginning and end of everything. And it's, I mean, it's a miracle in some senses, but like even my daughter, like I guess I don't really feel sorry for her, because to me that's not empowering for her. I have a lot more compassion for her, because through me being able to heal myself um of like the PTSD and the like suicidal depression, I had specific links that I could link those things to. So I'd be like, okay, I'm going to heal this part first, this part second, this part next, like you keep going around. Where with her, she doesn't have that.
Right.
So it's like, how does she heal it? How does she go on to heal that? And I was like, so I said to her, and I'm like, it's just a matter of you changing. There's nothing that she has to heal. She just needs to change the energy that's going through her.
Yeah.
But again, it's all she's known.
Right. It's interesting when you talk about like the utero phase, because we study that as well. Mm-hmm. And there's an exchange of energy in those first moments of life, right? Even before you're born in utero, there's exchange of energy. You're interacting through that mother with the world around you. And it's really interesting, because I was reading a study, Gabor Mate, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a very well-renowned physician, and he works with the trauma industry as well. And he was just saying that so women are the most susceptible to like depression, but it's actually men who carry it more and pass it on more. Where there was a study done with pregnant women, and if the male in that dynamic was depressed and the pregnant female was not, that child would actually feel those effects from the father's depression through utero, which is just like fascinating, right? That it can transfer even in those stages. Energy is such a big component in everything. And that's where that transgenerational trauma, that legacy being passed down, it's no fault. It's not that it's something that is intentionally being passed down, but if you don't heal your own trauma, unknowingly you will pass that down to your children, which, like, you and I both have children. It's so important to work on ourselves.
I wish I would have known that before I had kids.
Right.
I have a very good, just to back up what you were saying. So my first husband and I split up when my kids were 3 and 9 months old. I have a son as well. He was 9 months old. My daughter was 3. And he hasn't been in their life. It was his choice to stay out of their life. Through therapy, my daughter has actually come to the realization that a lot of her issues, yes, they do come from my energy, but her biggest thing, like there's some like resentments, and there's some negative energy with her and I. And through the whole process of her going to for counseling and things like that, her and her counselor have now realized that like 90% of my daughter's issues have actually come from her father, who didn't have like nurturing from his mother.
Right.
So like my daughter, it's like, this was kind of the thing that we couldn't figure out, is like, why is she always in panic mode? Why does she always think that nobody's going to protect her? Like nobody's going to take care of her. I've always been very nurturing towards her. I've always been protective of her. I've always taken care of her. I've never, ever like, pushed her away in any way, shape or form. But now we realize that it's actually through, like literally through that conception, where the moment where the sperm met the egg, that energy was transferred from my ex-husband, who did not have a very nurturing, emotionally stable parent or mother specifically. He actually had an unstable mother, very neglectful mother, and an alcoholic father. So that's where he came from. They're now realizing that a lot of my daughter's issues around her relationship with me is caused by that.
Right.
because it's almost like she has lived that life that he lived, even though her story is very different.
Well, it's interesting that you say that too, because what they say about children who are around nurture caregivers who suffer from some of the things that your ex has suffered from, it's interesting because their children are like sponges. We hear that all the time, right? We
Mhm.
hear that all the time. And so, what a child wants to do, the only thing that a child wants to do other than be loved and accepted and feel belong
Mhm.
is um, to fix
Make,
whatever's
make
wrong
everything
with the
better.
parents,
Mhm.
right? So they will take on whatever pain those parents or that parent is carrying, because to them, if it's their fault, if they're at fault or they're the reason why it's happening, then they can feel like they can fix it. But
Mhm.
that's the problem. And therein lies, once again, another form of trauma that is
Exactly.
then nurtured
And
and blossoms in adulthood, right?
exactly. And the one thing that I find the most interesting though is like my kids are 17 and almost 15 now. My son will be 15 next month. And they don't have a relationship with their father. And this is still coming through, even
Mhm.
though they've never had a relationship with him. He doesn't want one with them. They don't want one with him, whatever the issue is there. They're old enough now. I'm out of it. So I don't actually know what the issue is there, but they don't have a relationship with him, but it's still the energy that he brought to their life is still very, very, it's very, very plain to see that it's still effective in their life, which
Absolutely.
it's frustrating and it's infuriating in a lot of ways, because it's like, if I would have known then what I know now, but I also look at it that there's obviously something that they need to learn through this as well.
Right.
Um, and it's just, it's very, it's, again, as the mother, I want to go in and just fix everything and make everything better, but I do understand at the same time that they have to go through their own journey to healing as well.
Absolutely. And I can totally relate to that. Even just recently, as you know, my son fell. He had a really bad accident there,
Mhm.
and he actually broke his collarbone. And as I mentioned, he's only 6 years old, and I witnessed the whole thing unfold in front of my eyes, and there was nothing that I could do about it in that moment. And let me tell you, mom guilt was a major, major
Mhm.
thing, because I wish that could have done something or stopped it, or anyways. And so after I let that mom guilt play out for the day, that evening, I just kind of sat with everything, and I started to realize, like, he didn't die. He
Mhm.
survived. And
Mhm.
actually, I'm so proud of how he's reacted in that situation, and in his healing journey.
Mhm.
And it came down to, I cannot protect him from everything. He needs to learn those lessons himself, even though it's painful to watch your children get hurt, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally,
Mhm.
it's painful. But all we can do as parents is just support them and be there when they need us, and give them the tools to help teach them how to work through things, how to deal with things, and carry on, right, as an
Exactly.
empowered person.
Mhm.
um, which I think is really beautiful. And like you were saying there about your daughter, um, me personally, I have had a very what do I want to call it, toxic relationship with one of my parents. And
Mhm.
for a long time, I tried to be that fixer. I would stay in that loop. I would stay
Mhm.
in that cycle of being the perpetrator, until finally one day, and it was actually when I had my son, I was said, I don't want to subject him to what I was subjected to. So I then chose to create a boundary, and that was distance. And
Mhm.
um, so I created a healthy boundary for myself, and not everybody understood, and still not everybody understands my
They don't
boundaries, but
have to.
okay. Exactly.
It's
It's not for
not
them.
their boundary.
Exactly. And so what I've realized, and this boundary has been set, well, my son's 6, so close to 6
Mhm.
years now. And what I've realized in that boundary that I've created, even though it had difficult moments, um, I've been able to gain compassion
Mhm.
for that parent,
Mhm.
and gain an understanding of why, or what was the come from, or, why did the things happen, manifest, that sort of thing. So just having those safe boundaries for myself has also helped with my personal healing, and kept my child from being subjected to that at the same time, right? Because I
Exactly.
hadn't healed from it, so the only way for me to protect him was to keep him out of that situation.
Mhm.
um, So yeah.
And the
What
truth
else?
of it is, like, and that's kind of a situation, like, unfortunately, a lot of people that are the cause of the trauma, they will never take responsibility. And they don't have to. Like, them taking responsibility is not dependent on your journey, on you healing. And that's exactly what you're proving. And I think that's a very valid and very strong point of, it's up to you to empower yourself. And I never, anybody that's ever done any kind of harm to me, I don't feel sorry for them. I have no zero sympathy for them at all. I have empathy. I
Mhm.
empathize with them because at some point they have gone through something so traumatic that they have gone on to hurt other people. And for
Exactly.
that, I empathize because we're not so different. When you stop and look at it that way, what they've done to me and what has happened to them isn't so different. So there's that aspect, but I have compassion for them,
Mhm.
again, for that part of them that was also has gone through a trauma. Um, and through that, I can forgive them. It's not forgiving. In forgiveness, it's not about saying that what they did was right, or that I accept what was that it happened to me. It's the fact that I accept that I cannot change what's happened to me, but I choose not to carry it as a trauma anymore. I
Mhm.
now see it as something that's going to empower me and shift me into a place of who I'm supposed to be. Now, that not in a place of who am I, like kind of stuck in being,
Yeah.
and I allowed myself to be stuck for quite a few years, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's not an option anymore. Once you start healing, you just want more. It's like you feel
And
how good it feels and the empowerment it gives you, and you just want, it's like a drug. Like, I mean, very
and then
healthy drug, obviously.
and other people also want to know like what's going on with you, like what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing, and it's empowering to other people because you kind of start to shine this light, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
start to have that ripple effect outward, which is fantastic. And just touching back there on what you said about forgiveness, the common misconception that I've found is that people think forgiveness is about forgiving that person, forgiving what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is for yourself. So, like you said, you can set that down and move
Mm-hmm.
forward without it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about forgetting and letting go of that thing that happened, but it's saying, listen, I'm aware, I'm going to take ownership for my peace. I've learned the lessons, and I'm going to set it down here and move on without carrying that negative aspect of it with me. You take the positive with you, obviously, your
Exactly.
teachings and your learnings, but leave the rest.
I have a saying that I tell my clients all the time, and it's keep the experience. No, sorry, it's keep the lesson, leave the experience.
Mm, love it.
Because you don't need to have the experience to have a lesson. You don't need to keep playing the replaying. Like, and I mean, I remember everything about being like molested. I remember everything that happened to me. It's not about forgetting.
Right.
The difference is I can talk about it openly and not be crying and be a mess, and you'd be like hyperventilating so much. And that was the way I was until I couldn't talk about it. The pain was so raw. It was like it just happened. And even though it happened 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, um, yeah, that's really the only difference. It's not about forgetting. It's not about, you know, I me forgiving the person that molested me is not giving him a pass that I'm okay with being molested.
Yeah.
It's you don't get to control me through what you did to me anymore. That's all it
Exactly.
is. That's all forgiveness is. It is for the benefit of the person doing the forgiving. It's never about the person that did you wrong. And that's where a lot of people, I think that they need to have an actual apology in order to forgive. And the
Yeah.
truth of it is, you're probably not going to get it. I
Right.
say, I say one other thing I like to say a lot is there's two kinds of people in the world. You have your empaths, the people that feel what other people feel, the people that can feel other people's energy, emotions, and things like that, that really truly have an in-depth connection to humanity and what humanity needs, and has a love for people on some level, or earth or animals, or whatever the universe has to offer. And then on the other side of that is you have like your psychopaths and your narcissists. I look at it, and a psychopathic narcissist is not going to say I'm sorry because they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So what I have actually learned, even like through helping my clients to heal from their traumas, is that in a lot of cases, the worst thing you could do is try to talk to the person that hurt you,
Mhm.
because oftentimes if they're capable of hurting you, they have that psychopath narcissistic underlying tone to them, which then they're going to either A, deny it, or B, make you at fault. That's just going to re-traumatize you.
Mm-hmm.
That's just building, like literally adding fire to an already open wound, like don't do that to yourself. Don't seek out a person's approval for your own healing. Your
And
own healing is your journey.
exactly. And not to mention, if you are looking for that external validation, as in you're waiting or hoping or asking for somebody to apologize to you, you're disempowering yourself because you're putting all the power in their hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're
I can
saying
forgive you if you say you're sorry. Yes.
exactly. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's not empowering at all. And I think it comes again to it's an internal thing. This whole
Mm-hmm.
process is internal. And for me, for many, many, many years, I always used to call myself the fixer in relationships. I was the fixer. I was the fixer. So I looked
I
for
was
people
too.
who needed help. And why? Because I wasn't ready or willing to work on my own self. So I was externalizing what needed to be internalized.
Mm-hmm.
And that played out for many, many years until I started to realize, wait a minute, like I need to be focusing on me here and not the other people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of awareness and recognition around that. So what would be some of your favorite, just really quick, some of your favorite healing modalities? I know you touched on them in the beginning, but if you could give like your top three, what would you recommend to people who are listening?
So if you're just starting, I'm going to talk to the person that's just starting. Definitely find yourself a good energy healer. And don't think you only have to have one. A good energy healer, I tell my clients all the time, go find more than just me. Like, you need more than just me. I'm great at what I do. I know the powers that I have. I know the effect of that those powers have on people's lives. But every energy healer will bring something different to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the very minimum, everybody should have at least two energy healers. One big shift that I did was I started reading books on, self-help books to help with your mindset and things like that. That was really, really good. And it was one of those things where I could read a little bit and then kind of internalize it into myself. And I guess that's actually probably the one thing that I could accredit to allowing me to look at myself rather than look at people outside of myself that have caused my issues, is being able to read and then internalize it, like, how can I do this? And how can I change my life from what I've just read, kind of thing, that those kinds of things were really, really helpful. I listened to a lot of podcasts and things like that when I was first starting. This was all when I didn't know where to start or how to start or anything like that. What other things was there? My psychic gifts coming through has helped me a lot. And I'm not saying that everybody would necessarily have that, have those abilities start to come through, but I definitely, what you call like an awareness in your healing journey, I guarantee you there's going to be an awareness that you never had. Your intuition is going to be stronger. How that translates into is different for different people. But yeah, just being able to look at the spiritual aspects of things rather than the human aspects of things has really helped me out a lot as well. And that's what I use to help my clients, is to allow them to see the bigger picture of things, not just this happened to me, how do I deal with it? Let's look at the big picture, because there's a big picture for all of that. Yeah, just surround yourself with the positive people. Like, one thing that I this happened probably within the first 3 months was I had friends that I went to high school with that I was friends with for like over 20 years, over 25 years. And I was just like, why are these people in my life? I don't resonate with these people at all. And I realize now, looking back, that they fit me well when I was in the frame of mind of being a victim. But as somebody who is trying to empower herself, they did not fit with me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not saying anything against them. That's just there was a phase of my life that they were meant to be part of, and the phase of their life that I was meant to be part of.
Exactly.
But yeah, the people, like, don't be afraid to lose relationships through it, because everything, it's a drastic change. The other biggest piece of advice I could probably give is take your time. Don't try to rush through anything. It's so important to really look at everything, but also to realize, and I wish I would have realized this at the beginning, is that healing is a cycle. And ironically, so energy, a healthy energy, like, say if you're looking at like your throat chakra, for example, a healthy energy will go in a clockwise rotation, excuse me, and it almost looks like a cyclone, like it's bigger at the top and then it goes down into a cone shape, right? So I look at healing as like is like that too. So as you're going around, there's going to be different things that you have to heal, but you're always going to come back and revisit that one thing again.
Mm.
So like as an example, when I was molested, I had to heal that first. Then when I came back around, I realized I'm not healing the actual molestation anymore, but I'm healing the effects of it, the emotions that are attached to it, the fact that why I found my husband, my first husband, who was just like that, you know, who was abusive in those kinds of ways. All of those things that kind of my life had built upon from that initial thing that happened to me when I was younger. And realizing that every time it comes back around, you're actually just healing it on a deeper level until you get to that cone, the tip of the cone. And then the last time you heal it, you can release it.
It's not
Yeah,
like a done, right?
no. And the bigger they are, like, I mean, being around being molested, I've healed around that at least a half dozen times. And I'm still currently working on my weight is actually, I didn't realize this until recently, but I was molested because I was told I was cute.
Right.
And I realized at a young age that I started gaining weight because it's one thing that I had control over, to not be cute anymore. You know, if you're fat, you're not cute. So now in trying to lose weight and live a more healthier lifestyle, I'm not actually losing weight. I cut out sugar, processed foods, all the things that they tell you to. I eat like 100% healthy, and I actually have gained about 18 pounds from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's through all of that I'm learning even deeper of the emotional attachment and the fear that part of me has of letting go of those emotions. So that's probably the biggest thing that I would like people to know. The biggest piece of advice is that it's okay if you keep coming back around to it, you're just healing it on a deeper level.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the mindset piece that is enormous. You know, you can do the things, but if you don't believe in the things that you're doing or believe that
Mhm.
you're capable of doing those things, then it's really all for naught. You're just going through the
Exactly.
motions, right? And
100%.
again, that gut intuition, that gut feeling, that awareness, like you were talking about, is super important. I feel like when you get those taps, you get those feelings, that gut feeling for whatever it is, follow that. Have
Mhm.
that curiosity around that and follow that, because that is life taking you where you're supposed to be going, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
like your roadmap. And then the last thing that I really want to reiterate, sorry, is what you said about, around like your beliefs will dictate your experiences, and your experience then validate your beliefs, right? So
Right.
if you are in that mindset of that shame, blame, you know, you're down on yourself, then you're going to look to surround yourself with those people who are going to then validate that for you. So it's
Mhm.
all about pulling yourself out of those situations, like you said, and surrounding yourself with positive people
Mhm.
who lift you up to want to be better, want to do better, right? So
Exactly.
um I just want to say thank you so much for all your vulnerability and being so open and real and sharing so much of your personal experience. You are an inspiration. You're super powerful. This conversation has been amazing, and we could go on for more. I know so much more
Oh, I'm
time.
sure we could. Yeah.
I feel like we just like cracked the nut open, right? And there's like so
Yeah.
much juicy stuff in there. So we'll definitely have to do another conversation. But before we end, what's next for you, and where can people find you?
So I am actually on Facebook mostly. It's at Laurie the Psychic Healer. I'm also on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel under Laurie Williams. Um, those are pretty much the places that I hang out the most. I mean, if you find me on Facebook, add me as a friend on my personal page. I'm totally cool with that. I have no issue with that at all. I actually prefer to be friends with my clients, because in order for us to go as deep as we need to go into their healing journey, the truth of it is I'm going to know you better than anybody else. I mean, I can already read your energy, so I mean, I kind of got that first cover anyway. But the deeper we go, the more I'm going to know about you. So I mean, to me, it's only fair that you know about me and you see pictures of me, you know, doing my regular life and my kids and all that kind of stuff. So I figure what's fair is fair, right?
Yeah.
And it's about building relationships with people. And I want my clients, and even if they're not clients, I want people in my space that I can actually just help, even if they just get something positive every day from something that I post, then that my job is done.
Exactly.
So like they don't have to pay me. I tell people all the time, like, you don't have to pay me to talk to me, like it's not the way I work.
Yeah. And
um
that's great. I
yeah,
love
so it's yeah, that's pretty much where I hang out the most. As far as what's next for me, I'm just gonna keep doing what I love doing. I love helping people. Everything that I do comes back to healing. And I realized I was kind of actually wondering, like, how did my readings, being able to do like energy readings and mediumship readings and things like that, how does that actually help people? But then I realized, I'm like, you're helping them heal through grief, heal through their grief, heal through the unknown, and heal through like their path, and help them on their path. And so yeah, I mean, once I've realized that everything that I offer actually comes back to healing, and I realized how powerful that actually is. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, because this is what I'm here for.
I
I don't
love
really
it.
have an option.
I love it. I love that you found like your calling and you're totally stepping into that and you're being so brave and courageous about it. Um, I love watching you on Facebook and seeing your content come out. So I do urge everybody, get her on your Facebook and you'll get to see all the great stuff that she's doing. And you're an amazing human and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you
So
so much. It has been an awesome opportunity. It was great to see you again.
yes, you as well. And we will
Uh,
chat soon.
all
Okay.
right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.